Welcome in, YCN Sports Talk. I'm Jeremy Stout and joined again by Brett Franklin. Brett, thanks for coming back for another week.
Appreciate it. A little bit better circumstances than the last time. Driving up, not seeing any cars off the road on I-91.
Right.
Great to be back here on YCN Sports Talk.
Yeah, Brett from ESPN Radio 94.5 FM of the Upper Valley. So he'll fill us in on all his sports knowledge, continuing that, I hope. Let's get right to the Red Sox. Spring training started last week. Pitchers, catchers reported, position players. Now, as a general overview, before we get into the nitty-gritty, what's your outlook on this season? Positive?
Well, I'm going to try to be positive, but really what it comes down to, I think the Boston Red Sox need to make the ALCS or otherwise this season's a failure. You look at Dave Dombrowski, general manager for the Red Sox, went out, got you the pieces. You do have David Ortiz, that hole to fill, but I think they do have enough firepower offensively to at least cover that a little bit. But it's ALCS or bust, Jeremy.
Yeah.
If they don't get there, then this season's a failure. I know you're saying, Brett, great energy bringing it to spring training, but again, you went out and got the pieces, and the way the American League shaking up, I think it's Cleveland, Boston, and then it's everybody else.
Well, right, because they are the favorites in the American League East, and I don't see any question, aside from injuries, that they win the division. And then you're right, they need to have a better showing in the playoffs. Last year, obviously, getting run out quickly wasn't right. What they need to do again. So after Price, Porcello, and Chris Sale, whatever order they go in, that's the big question mark. Who fills out the back end of this rotation? And will they need, maybe when you get to the playoffs, you don't need them as much, but in the regular season, you need 5-6 starters.
Right. Well, so it comes down to basically Stephen Wright, Eduardo Rodriguez, and then you got Drew Pomeranz. I think it should be Stephen Wright and Drew Pomeranz. Eduardo Rodriguez, he's going to play in the World Baseball Classic, Jeremy, which I absolutely hate. A guy that can barely get to 150 innings in a season. He's going to be like a third of the way through after the World Baseball Classic is done. But I think Stephen Wright deserves an opportunity to retain his position in the rotation. Inexplicably being a pinch runner in an interleague game, goes out, gets hurt. He was on fire leading up until that injury. I think he deserves a shot. And I think Drew Pomeranz, you went out, you gave up a little bit.
Yeah, you gave up a lot to get him.
Yeah, you gave up some pieces there, so I think you need to give him a shot. I'm not really sold on Erod. I still think that knee injury has created some issues for him, and he's just been very streaky. Some people think he's been tipping his pitches. Still hasn't been able to figure that out, but I think it's Wright, and I think it's Pomeranz. I think that's how they should start.
And even if they do have those three guys lined up, as you mentioned, Stephen Wright coming back from the injury, you don't know how he'll come back from it. Supposedly he's been throwing, and he's getting in there. Rodriguez with the injuries, with the inconsistencies, and then Pomeranz in his short time, he's not pitching in San Diego. So they have three pitchers and they have three question marks. So it's going to be interesting to see if they maybe get somebody at the trade deadline or somebody emerges from, whether it be a Henry Owens or someone from Brian Johnson. I don't really know, but it just seems like they have some question marks in that rotation.
Yeah, with going back to Henry Owens, I think that train may have sailed at this point, or the ship has been sailed at this point with him. Brian Johnson been coming off that injury. I thought a couple of seasons ago he looked really good, had a couple of nice starts for the Boston Red Sox, but it would be nice for this rotation to have three lefties going, whether it's front end, back end. You obviously have Sale and Price, but what other teams can throw out three lefties in your rotation? So I think Drew Pomeranz should get the start, but it may be fifth man by committee at this point.
Exactly.
We'll have to wait and see.
And a lot of times in the beginning of the season, you don't need a fifth man just because the way the schedule shakes up, a lot of days off. All right, going to the offensive side, two players with question marks for different reasons. First, you have Pablo Sandoval coming back, probably going to be the starting third baseman. What are the expectations for him? And Andrew Benintendi out there in the outfield, full season, first time, full season. What can we expect from both of those guys?
For Pablo Sandoval, my expectations very limited for him. I think if he can go out there, hit 270, give you 25 homers and 70 RBI, you'll be fine with that. But it's his defense that I'm really worried about. He was a liability out there.
Yeah, he was pretty bad
base.
a couple years ago.
It was pretty awful. So the Red Sox are going to give him every opportunity because they're just paying him so much money. I think they sent a message that Travis Shaw trading him
opened up the spot.
Absolutely. So Brock Holt will be that backup guy, but I think Brock Holt's going to be a guy where they're going to plug and play him every night because he can play anywhere. Andrew Benintendi, the ceiling's very high for him, I think, and a lot of folks who have been down in Fort Myers, I don't know how much you can get from seeing him do a wind sprint, but apparently,
right,
they're very excited. But I'm always worried about that sophomore slump. But all indications are he's going to be a really fun player to watch this season.
Well, I think it's going to be an exciting season. You're right. They have a lot of expectations, but they have the talent to do it, and that's where it starts. You got to have some talent because we've seen these teams come in with no talent, and just. You only overperform so often, so you've got to start with something. So it's going to be an interesting season, and that's going to be coming up before we know it. We'll take a break. We'll come right back and talk some Celtics, second half getting underway, and talk about what their grade is for the first half and what they should do at the trade deadline. You're watching YCN Sports Talk.